We are back with another episode of the White Mountain Endurance Podcast. I'm your host, Patrick Caron, and today we are joined by two awesome guests who I'm very excited to chat with, both Cody Updike and Ethan Schalekamp. Welcome to the pod, you two.
Thank you for having us, Patrick.
Yeah, I feel like there's so much to chat about. Probably many people listening are maybe they haven't seen your faces, but they've certainly seen your work. With all of the White Mountain Endurance races, you've been part of the White Mountain Endurance community for the last 2 years and shared some incredible stories with your filmmaking and videography. Maybe we just start off right at the bat of just like your introduction to Aravaipa and the White Mountain Endurance community. Either if you want to take it away, that'd be great.
Sure. I guess I'll get started because this was kind of a big step that I made a couple years ago. I guess I finished up PT school. I'm a full-time PT. I finished up PT school in 2022, and then just over the course of the following year, spent a lot of time making outdoor adventure kind of photography and film with Cody often, and I had reached a point where I was like, the freelance stuff that I was doing wasn't as engaging as I wanted it to be compared to like the stuff I was doing for fun. So I just kind of like scoped the internet and was like, hey, what's in the New England area that I could get involved with on a professional level? Because I know I had kind of the chops to bring something to the table, and reached out to White Mountain Endurance about photo video needs, and they had just been acquired by Aravaipa, so that just kind of all went from there. And then Cody can tell his side of things, but we've been kind of on board with that since.
Yeah, Ethan's always been a fantastic networker. Lots of just reaching out to folks, pretty cold call or meeting people in the street randomly, and he's always making connections. So, which is sort of how the both of us met, and then kind of segued into doing 2 years of race films and documentaries together.
So, how did you exactly meet? Was it online or in person at an event? Or yeah, I want to know.
I'll let
Um,
Cody tell his side of it.
yeah. So I was in the process of moving back to upstate New York from out in Utah, where I was doing a lot of photo video work in the overlanding world, lots of camper van stuff, and I was looking for a roommate at the time, and then randomly got introduced to a mutual friend of ours, and one night Ethan shows up at my apartment at like midnight, and that was my first introduction to Ethan, was through my roommate, and from there we just started. We both found that we had similar interests in film and photography, and kind of spiraled into the running world. Yeah, the first project we shot together was a little spec shoot for trail running up here in the Adirondack Mountains, where I currently live. And yeah, then next after that was our first big shoot, was Chikura together.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Diving into the deep end, which
Oh yeah.
I love it. And yeah, maybe just to even go back even further, like I'd love to hear more about both of your like introduction to this like creative work. Yeah, if that's something that, you know, for quite a while or more recent history, but yeah, Cody, if you want to start.
Definitely. I got into taking photos maybe like 9 or 10 years ago. Um, I always was a big traveler, outdoors person, lots of hiking and running, and just wanted to kind of capture what I was seeing. And as like I sort of, as the years progressed, sort of started growing more interest in the actual marketing side of things. And did some like little small freelance gigs here and there for little things like wine companies or t-shirts or whatever. Nothing in the outdoor space. I moved out west for a few years where I got some work doing marketing full time for a like a camper van conversion company. Um, and then I moved back to the East Coast and started working in tourism and doing freelance gigs, shooting like road running races, trail races, and then a lot of just miscellaneous outdoor hiking and eating for tourism boards. And that segued eventually into shooting more video with Ethan and the Aravaipa race docs.
Very cool. Ethan, yourself?
Yeah. I think it's been cool knowing Cody and getting to know him the past few years and kind of hearing our kind of different avenues to reaching a similar kind of point. Going way back, like my mom's a painter and printmaker. I think art has always been a part of my life, visual arts in particular. But amongst that was also some like music and theater, so like performing arts and that kind of storytelling worked its way in. And the whole time I've just always loved movies. So I think there was always something there for me, and my like artistic expression has always taken different forms. But at the same time, I've always enjoyed being active and training and being outside. So eventually, I think I had maybe not so specifically realized the stuff I was gonna land on, but like I loved the idea of having a camera on me and documenting things and shooting photos. I love the idea of making narratives and making movies. I had very like a lot of unfinished projects that I started as a kid, and then as a kid like there's sometimes not as much follow through, but like I was always on my mind, uh, even all the way through college and grad school. So when I had some friends who were kind of going off and doing this freelance photo video thing on their own, and I kind of saw like, hey, like so that's actually something you can do. You know, this is
Yeah.
kind of like early Instagram, like the whole world of like everyone's an influencer and whatever didn't really exist yet. It was like, oh, people I know are kind of going out and having adventures and making cool stuff and getting paid for it, maybe. Um, that slowly kind of became something that I aspired to, and also just was already out doing stuff. So I was like, let me bring a camera. And ultimately that just kind of led to some hopes and dreams of making documentaries that of the style that I enjoyed watching on YouTube, and then that became what it was. I did some passion projects and was able to say to people, hey, look, I can do stuff like this, and
Yeah.
that became projects with Aravaipa.
Yeah, I think it's really cool that you found like Aravaipa and White Mountain Endurance in particular. Like, I feel like, Jameel specifically, but Aravaipa as a whole have such like a, history of uh, creating like content for the running and ultra running community. Some of the early adopters, I feel like, of the, just storytelling with film for like both races, and then just also, all of just the, personal sort of adventures and content that, Jameel has done himself. Um, were you familiar with a lot of that, like before finding Aravaipa, or like what content were you like previously, exposed or engaging with within like the trail and ultra space?
That's a good question. Uh, I kind of laugh at it sometimes because now I'm like pretty stoked on this whole trail racing and mountain racing genre, both as a creative but also as an athlete. I'm by no means a competitive trail racer, but I now really enjoy preparing for and participating in them. Um, and I don't have a strong running background. Like I definitely got into that stuff through the creative work that we wound up doing. Uh, like I was like, this is cool. I get to be in the mountains with a camera making projects. And then I said, actually, this sport is also just itself very, very cool. And wanted to be a part of it and experience it, and also help that inform the projects that I was making as well, just being able to be in it. So I admittedly actually had never heard of Aravaipa or had never heard of Jamil, but had definitely, consumed some like ultra marathon and like trail racing media before. I think probably one of the most influential ones that I saw and have come back to repeatedly is Gary Robbins' Barkley Marathon doc that he's got. That's, I just think, one of like the best ones that I've seen that I've enjoyed. But I think it's just exploding right now too. So it's been cool to kind of be a part of that also.
Yeah, Cody, were you previously like exposed to much ultra running, trail running, content? I know you said you did a little bit of dabbled in that space, but just like from your personal like pure like entertainment say factor, like were you separate from work, sort of engaged in that world?
Yeah, a little bit. I'm trying to think of the first thing I'd ever seen in the running world. Like I came from much more of a like track side of things. Um, so a lot of the like early content was mostly in the sprinting space. Um, and then I found a lot of other folks who the sprint world to ultra like slope
Wow.
is pretty crazy. But yeah, so that was kind of my first dive into like running media. And then once I started running trails a little bit more and like searching for that sort of content, really the first things that captivated me was everything, all the coverage of like different uh, Golden Trail series
Yeah.
pieces. Um, and all of like Solomon's media that comes out of that. So a lot of it was that sort of Instagrammy, like FPV drone over the ridge line or like first person point of view of like a crazy downhill before I started seeing more in like the long form doc
Okay.
content sort of thing. Um, but I know seeing those sort of short form pieces of like the epic adventures like got my brain moving like I want to be outside too, and then made me think, oh, there's got to be more stories to tell, and then you start kind of going down that rabbit hole of, oh, there's a whole world of like athletics out here that you didn't really know existed, and just started consuming content that way. um, so it's pretty beautiful, and I love being able to kind of dive into that world more after years of running in circles.
Yeah. That's awesome. No, I love
Now they're just
the
bigger, they're
sprint.
bigger circles now.
Yep. Yeah, with a few more obstacles along the
Yeah.
way. Cool. Well, yeah, me fast forwarding to Chikura Mountain Race 2023. You show up the morning of, or I guess probably the night before.
Mhm.
What was like going through your minds? Just like, was there a storyline already sort of drafted up in your head, or like where, how are you approaching that first event?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I can remember just, like I said, I kind of like reached out to White Mountain. Christina handed me off to Jamil, and I was like, "Who's this guy?" And one of the best things about working with Aravaipa so far has just been that like Jamil gives people so much creative freedom. He's like a master like delegator. I think that's like why he's able to juggle a million different things at once. But he was just like, all right, go make something. And then if this works out, maybe we can work together again. And I was like, all right, this is going to be as good as I can make it.
Yeah.
Which was a huge part of why I wanted Cody to come with me, because I was like, I can't shoot this whole mountain by myself, you know? And yeah, we pulled up the night before and kind of like stealth camped maybe
Yeah.
we shouldn't have done the way we did. But early on, there was a lot of sleeping in cars and,
Yeah.
not getting much sleep and just kind of, early morning hiking up to where we need to be. And I think I was just really excited to like be like, whoa, I get to be on a beautiful mountain. I'd been on that mountain before for a different project, and I was just kind of like pinching myself. I was like, this is cool. I get to use my camera in the woods on a mountain, and it was a very rainy, misty, kind of gross day. But the whole time,
Yeah.
I was like, this is so cool, and yeah, it was really rewarding that day to kind of see the efforts up until that point, where there was a lot of just like sunrise hikes, where like I'm doing this in order to practice using my skills in the mountains in like rugged environments, or reaching out to people like, hey, can we do this cool thing together just cause, uh, and then being able to use all those things that I'd already done in a work context that was like, hey, that's how that happens, I guess.
Yeah, I feel like what's super unique, or at least semi-unique with ultra running and specifically trail running, like films, is it requires such skill from the videographer, which like, unlike maybe filming at a track where it's like, okay, this is super easy to cover, and there's obviously skill of the, in other ways, but like the physical skill required to film someone while trail running, like you need to be able to stay upright and match their speed while
Hmm.
holding lots of gear, and continue to, yeah, I mean, even like, the little that I've done, it's like you're trying to like just see where you're going through even the lens of the camera sometimes, like you're looking at the ground like through a camera sometimes, but yeah, I just think, I don't know. Find that super intriguing to me, of just how you develop those skills to like continue to be better at that. I'm sure you two have learned like after several, events, just like ways to be more efficient, or
Mm, definitely.
yeah, I think, I don't know, there's just so much to learn and explore in that realm.
Yeah, the first few videos we did for Aravaipa, they were more of like highlight style, which made it a little bit easier to shoot because we were shooting more for like coverage. We came in with like a list of, okay, we want like this type of shots. Um, which would everything could be from like, okay, we want to, so a bunch of clips of following folks, leading folks, shots from this way, shooting down the ridge line, a couple of more generic prompts
Yeah.
that we would get. And then it also came down to like what runners were doing on the day as well, which is
Yeah.
like tricky. We would get to we would set up like, okay, Ethan's doing these locations on this day, Cody's going to do these locations on this day, and then we'll go in with our shot list and pick out like the locations we've marked, like, okay, here will be like the best shots that we can get, and then just try to start getting them on the fly. Because it's such, it's the Northeast, the woods, unless you're on a summit, the woods are super tight.
Yeah.
So it's often like you don't know when people are coming.
Yeah,
You
they
have
just
maybe
pop out
like,
of nowhere.
yeah, yeah. So I know, especially later on, in the series, when we started building more narrative into these films, like especially with like the Jigger Johnson 100, when we were filming that, um, that was, you're kind of like, okay, runners should be coming through at like around this time. And so you have like a general area of when they're going to be coming through, and you just sit there for maybe 5 minutes, maybe 20 minutes with your cameras at the ready, just waiting for it. And then I know, at least for me, I'm just thinking of this year's bald face.
Yeah.
I started up a little too early, and so every time I was like, all right, they have to be coming, and it'd be another 15 minutes, another 5 minutes, and then and then you just see a movement in the trees, and you have about 4 seconds to get that camera on to get that lead runner coming through. Um, and so it's sometimes, you'll go in with like a planned shot, and you're like, well, that's not happening. Gonna, get whatever we can on the fly, and then try to shoot more coverage of like those lead runners. And then once, you start getting more people coming through, you have more freedom to mess around and like do
Yeah.
some more creative shots. So, um, yeah, especially as we, the more we did this, and developed kind of like the style of how we were shooting and editing for all of our White Mountain endurance videos. We would all the like the little nifty shots you see are mostly like mid-pack stuff, because it's like, oh, I have some breathing room now. Like
Yeah.
I don't have to like be on panic mode all the time.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I feel like, well, maybe, yeah, for reference, how many miles did you put in at Baldface? I
Oh
remember it
God.
being crazy.
Um, I didn't. I don't remember how many it was. It was like 16, I
Yeah.
think. Um,
And
just
you're out there
going.
for like a solid like 10 hours or
Yeah,
something.
I mean, I came out like definitely after the lead run or the final runners, I think,
Okay.
or at least the last few. There's still a couple
Yeah.
people maybe going down, um, but that and what was he? Was it Kilkenny we were shooting in this past year? Um, and then I did that whole, well, most of the loop as well.
Yeah.
And coming down the backside of Cabot, that's like I remember just chatting with the runners as they were going down. We'd run down maybe like a couple 100 meters out, and then I'm like, all right, have fun, guys, and then
Yeah.
hike back up, run down with them, hike back up. I probably did that like 15 to 20 times. Just that's where I stacked in all that mileage and vert.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
That's
think a
awesome.
good way to like summarize what it's like to film these races is very much like hurry up and wait, and like it's more like running laps or like sprints than it is
Yeah.
like doing an endurance
Yeah.
thing. Uh, Jigger Johnson this year was one where like the previous year with the
Mm.
100 we
Whew.
had two shoot days, and we were like I had brought on a couple other people to help out, and we had like a lot of opportunities for coverage. So actually shooting 100 is a lot easier than these short distances because you have so much time and like so many opportunities. But like when it's
Yeah, and they're
something,
moving like maybe a quarter of the pace.
yeah, and then something like Jigger Johnson 20 this year was probably one of the hardest ones we've done because they had these two peaks that were discontinuous, and both of them were about 3 miles in to get to. So um, usually, if we're thinking about what needs to be captured, it's like we need the start line, we need some trail, we need the summits of the mountains that are featured on the course would be ideal, and we need the finish line. So let's see, what was it? I think Cody. Who got the start then? I think it was
I think you got the start.
I
Yeah.
got the start while Cody went up to Osceola, and then I immediately like sprinted to Tecumseh, and then he came down to the finish line, and each of us were in position like within minutes of the of. Well, it didn't help that Dan was running, but like it was like
Yeah,
we
I mean
each got
that
there.
that split was crazy.
Yeah, we just got there like within minutes of the lead runners arriving to those checkpoints, and it was like the whole time, like like
Yeah, just hoping for the
go.
best.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Yeah, I
were
remember.
doing some review of our footage from the top of Osceola, and the timestamps on the videos of Dan coming through and Max coming through, and everyone was so close by the time they had gotten there. Um, so it was pretty crazy. That was a beautiful race. Like that 20 miler was so fast and such a amazing mix of like techie ascents and descents. Like the descent down Osceola is.
Yeah.
is a ankle breaker.
Yeah, and
And
I got to like catch them on that road section, and they're just like
yeah,
flying downhill,
that
running,
yeah, that road was
which was super
so
fun.
good for cutting time. So
Yeah.
super that course I think is one of the most dynamic on the in the series, just because yeah, you have like really technical trails followed up by like this middle section, and then the final like 2 miles is really fast, like dirt and gravel, um, which is incredible. People were coming hard at the end. Yeah, it was.
Yeah. I
I
know
was
that was
I did
great.
a
I
lot of
loved it
a
because
lot of
you actually
sprinting.
had a good visual towards like,
Mm,
if you're at the finish line, you could see them like, coming toward the bridge, like a solid maybe quarter mile like
hmm.
away. So that was kind of fun as opposed to just like them popping out of nowhere kind of towards the finish.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd love to like rewind to Jigger Johnson 2023, you guys covering the 100. I feel like that film that you produced like it really blew up and got a lot of eyes. And I feel
Hmm.
like even now I just continue like around the New England running scene, like hear people reference it. And, I feel like you made some of the participants sort of like local stars too, of like, oh, so and so who was in the Jigger Johnson film, like Nick and Jackie from My Own Endurance, like and that was a really cool story that continued into 2024. But yeah, did you like, what do you feel like made that so special? Yeah.
Yeah, I think, I mean, just for one, that was a really rewarding thing to be able to make. That was the first 100 that I'd ever kind of witnessed, and I think I've shot like 3 or 4 100 milers in different capacities now, but like that's just always going to kind of set the standard for me of what like 100 can be, and I think it really is just very unique. As I think everyone who's been there or knows about it can attest to. It's it's such a crushing course. It's
Yeah.
it's like just what a
Yeah.
formidable event,
Brings
but
out a lot of emotion, that's for sure.
which is great for film. So it was, yeah, I think just it really sits up there in one of the things I'm just the most proud of having been a part of and having been able to produce. The thing about that was the first one that we made with kind of that documentary approach. The first couple
Hmm.
being event style, but I wanted them to feel like not just kind of like your corporate like event little highlight reel. I wanted them to feel a bit more cinematic, but that was the first one that felt like a movie that we were making.
Yeah.
And I think just what really kind of set it apart was that everyone else there, the people that we featured weren't necessarily like the two winners we put, or the leading two men we put in the film, of course, because they led the pack, but we didn't have any interviews with them. They weren't really the main character, so to speak.
Mhm.
It was very much, I think, community driven, just like White Mountain Endurance has historically been. And with the Northeast being a pretty robust racing scene, but not as grandiose and like flashy and like celebrity kind of like star spangled as like the Mountain West and the West Coast is, with things like Western States and Javelina and stuff like that. I think it was just the perfect mix of taking a community level event that is just such a beast that people need to care about it a lot for it to be what it is. Otherwise, like, why would anyone come out to it?
Yeah.
And then taking those people who give it that character, people like Nick and Jackie, people like Mary, and featuring them, I think made it a very relatable thing for a lot of runners out there, and maybe made something as daunting as Jigger Johnson feel more attainable than maybe someone feels when they're watching Jim Walmsley at UTMB. It's like, I'm never gonna be Jim, but
Yeah.
I might be a Mary or a Nick,
And I feel like for people like within the Northeast, just to know that, one of probably the toughest like hundreds in the country, like is, not that far away. Like, and you don't have to travel like in a plane to get to some epic course. Like we have something like that, like, in our backyard. I think that adds like just something cool to it. And yeah, I mean, even just the numbers from 2023 to 2024, like I know the course was changed a little bit and the conditions were definitely better, but like just the number of finishers, like, dramatically increasing, just like people, like you said, seeing like, oh, I could do something like this. Like it is it is wicked hard, but like I could see myself in these athletes and take on that challenge. I think that was pretty neat. I like that you highlighted, not just the front of the pack. And I think just more, there hasn't been like within the New England space that many sort of premier level films like produced. There's a lot of, there's definitely like storytelling that happens and, people just, I don't know, filming their own race with a GoPro or things like that. But not a lot of these like higher level production pieces put together for a race. So I don't know. I've always found like I'm trying to like, I meet people from elsewhere and I'm like with words trying to explain like what we have here in, the whites and in the Northeast. But I think just the visual component is so much more compelling.
Yeah,
And really,
that's what I
helps.
thought about. That's what always makes me so proud of the Jigger Johnson, the film, but also the race itself. I felt like what made it so impacting for people is that it encapsulates Northeast recreation and trail running in a nutshell. It's I mean that race in 2023 was no, I mean, it was a hard course. The weather was terrible that first day. Um, and, but people were out there because they wanted to be. And so it was the ruggedness of the terrain mixed with the ruggedness of the people and the sense of community and how much people were like enjoying being there, even when they were suffering. It just kind of attests to what the Northeast is in general and how it's so different from like Ethan said, those big kind of star-studded, clean races out west, that are maybe more in the professional circuit. But this has such it's a huge course. It's incredibly difficult, and it's beautiful, and it feels still like a piece of home, like small.
Mhm.
And I think that's really what draws people to it. And I do see it growing a lot more in the future, and maybe becoming more of a staple for maybe some like bigger names in trail running. But it kind of it still feels like very very community driven to me still.
I want to
Yeah,
say,
oh, go on, Ethan.
no,
Yeah.
I just like to add on to that. I want to say, like, how it's like hard rock, UTMB, Western States is like that kind of like trifecta. I'm just saying UTMB doesn't really fit. It's like in a different country. It's the organization has its whole like
Bring in Jigger.
make it Jigger 100, on the East Coast, Western States on the West, and then you have Hard Rock in the middle. That makes a lot more sense to me, I think.
Hmm.
So.
A
I
little
love it.
coast to coast 100-mile chasing.
That would be, I mean, imagine the triple doing, because you could like, June,
The Triple
July,
Crown of
August.
United States 100
Yeah.
milers.
That would be quite a feat. Yeah. I feel like, it would be just what you were saying at the end of like, it would be super cool to see some, people like we've definitely just in last year, like there's people from Hawaii who came, like we had like
Hmm.
people coming from all over the country to participate. I think, that next step would be like you know, at the front of the field, like it would be really cool to see, several runners just throw down on that course. I mean, we've had some really strong performances, and I think, like you said, that'll continue to build. but that's a fun thought to imagine for sure.
I think there's a
And
lot
Or
I
of
we could
feel
just
like,
space.
keep pushing that.
yeah,
Yeah, I think there's a lot of space for like brand sponsorship there. I mean, it was cool to have Terex on the cup this year,
Hmm.
but I mean, like the scale of the event beyond just the race that like Hoka did at Western States this year was like, I mean, for one thing, just for the like local economy would be pretty cool. Like for the trail running scene here, it'd be pretty cool. I think it's perilous to like put at risk some of the community feeling of these races, but at the same time, I think it's an event that maybe deserves some of that attention. I think um, so yeah, it's just kind of my thought on that.
yeah. How do you feel like you like personally sort of, I don't know, juggle that the I don't know, the development and professionalism that's taking place within trail running, while also like you know honoring that local community oriented feel. Yeah, curious your perspective on that, and how like also you as a storyteller of these events can sort of, I don't know, help or hurt that, I guess.
Cody, do you have thoughts on that? I have a few, but
Yeah, I feel like there's always gonna be races out there if you want that small town feeling, if you want that really hard community aspect. And but then there's also races that deserve to be elevated on a professional setting because of, you know, the course needs like maybe it's just like there needs to be more built around it to make it function better. And so I think
Mhm.
there's certain races that do require like a higher level of engagement from the professional community just to make it operate and be as smooth as possible. Um, and maybe that's like how Jigger Johnson said, like the 50 miles is a point to point. The logistics of making that happen is incredible. Aravaipa puts on an incredible race, but the something on such like a massive scale to make it run as smoothly as possible to make sure that the runners are taken care of throughout the course itself because there's huge sections of really difficult terrain with no bailout point on them. Um, so I think some of these larger races, having them be managed and be a little bit larger of a performance is beneficial. But some of the smaller courses, like I think having them have more sponsors or having them feel like too well oiled, um, like too mechanical is would detract from them. Like a smaller race like Chikura, like or even Baldface, like that's like a single mountain course. Um, it might feel a little bit too sterile, a little too clinical if you start like making like a massive project out of it. Um, you know, uh, and I don't want to like bash on any other like race programs or anything. Ethan and I worked on a project this fall, end of summer, fall, on Sugarloaf for like the was it Terex World Cup. Um,
Xterra, yeah, the trail
Xterra,
run.
sorry. I my head was thinking I'm still in the whole like yeah Tarek sponsoring
Yeah, yeah.
the cup this year. But having like too built out of a thing might detract from how close knit of a community some of those smaller races are. But again, some of these larger races, I think there'd be some like solid benefit and also just like more eyeballs on that race, and you can do more with it. You
Mhm.
know, um, it's kind of nice having more some like spectators throughout the course or even at the finish
Yeah.
for like these huge 100 milers or even like the 50 milers, just cheering people on.
Yeah, that
Um,
was like more ways for people to get involved too. I
hmm
mean, even just like, yeah, with live streams now too, just like ways, you know, not everyone maybe wants to run Jigger Johnson or some of these other events, but it's a great way to like, yeah, allow other people to feel like they have a part in it as well.
hmm
Um, Ethan, it sound like you have some thoughts.
Yeah, I think one of the things that made trail running like stick out to me so immediately when we kind of came onto the scene with the photo video stuff was just how easily accessible the sport is for both athletes and also creatives. I know several people who are in the track and field creative space, and the amount of gatekeeping and like bureaucracy and credentials that are needed to get to the kind of high levels of where that sport is occurring and make really cool work from that is like such a grind and such a there's so many people to please and like different obstacles in the way for people to be able to shoot that. Being in Boston, like I went to BU, a ton of really cool stuff happens at the BU indoor track, and like one of the things I kind of want to do is just like go out there and just shoot it because I could, that's
Yeah.
pretty cool. But I can't just go to like I don't know, like the Olympic trials or like the Penn relays or something and just like show up and like be up on the track and like shooting cool stuff. Like people would stop me and turn me around.
Gotta get the badge.
Yeah, yeah. Whereas here with trail running, it's like who's gonna stop you from just going to the trailhead and like shooting cool stuff because you want to? If I wanted to go shoot Hard Rock, is like a super prestigious, sought after race, like no one can say like no, you can't go hike. I think I'm not positive about that, but I'm pretty sure I could just go, pretty sure I could just go hike out there. Like they're not going to be like monitoring these like dozens of miles of trail, So it's like so accessible to go and get really intimate footage of these events and like what it's like to be out there. And I think the more structured it is, like as much as that would be technically possible at something like UTMB, it's just so much happening there that it can't be that way. So when you bring in these big sponsors, big names, and with that maybe a lot of structure where they're trying to do like an activation and it's a festival beforehand or something like that, that imposes obstacles to spectators, to athletes, to creatives, to anyone that really actually helps drive the sport forward in terms of visibility, in terms of people discovering these races and relating to them and saying like, I think I want to try that. That's something I'm really proud of, that I got to meet a few people this past year who said like, hey, I saw the films that you and Cody made for Aravaipa and that's why I'm here. That's why I'm signed up for all these races. And I was like,
Yeah.
that's kind of nuts. That's really cool.
Oh, American flag guy.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
If
And
you if you watch Baldface, you'll know who we're talking about.
yeah, um, and I think Cody's spot on. Where I think something like Jigger Johnson, like I saw how hard all the Aravaipa staff were working to make that happen, and how difficult that is. It's
Mhm.
also super cool to see some of them are I think signed up this year for the 100. That's I
Yeah.
think what is it,
I
Heidi
love
and
it.
Aaron.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, I think there would be a huge opportunity for something this of this scale and of this caliber, for a brand to come in and say, hey, like this measures up to the pantheon, if you will, and let's help this run really smoothly and effectively and safely.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like there's yeah, lots of opportunity for it. It doesn't need to follow some set structure of what that looks like.
Mm.
There's a lot of freedom, creative freedom to, you know, make that sort of support from brands and from yeah, just it doesn't have to be one set way. Yeah, one thing that you were kind of touching upon that I wanted to dive into is like how I feel like trail running and in ultra running, like there's more opportunity for you as filmmakers to bond with the participants,
Mm,
like,
yeah.
and I think, I even just like the few moments that people see you out on the trail, I feel like you're just like extra appreciated. It's like people love, because it can be like a uh very solo sort of like lonely experience out there sometimes. Like, you're not running with a pack of people all the time. You're
Hmm.
on your own. You might not see anyone for a couple hours. And so when they come upon, either of you out in the woods, like, I feel like there's a bond that forms. And I don't know. I'd love to hear some of, like, yeah, your experiences with that.
Yeah, that sparked a few memories immediately for me. Um, it really does make it feel a little bit more intimate. Like I first season, like I think it almost felt like a arc. Like by the time you got to, race 3 in the series, people they would know you're out there for like
Yeah.
by the time 2 hit, like 1 you kind of surprised everyone. We had like a set group of folks we were filming for the 2024 series. But like the general public kind of figured out that there was going to be a video crew out there for by the time the second race of the series happened. And so people would be, oh my God, yeah, you. Like I was wondering where we'd see you, or I'd get that a lot from whenever I was out on the trail, because Ethan and I would, switch locations depending on the race. I'd get that a lot from some of our regulars, like Lindsay would be like, I was trying to figure out where you'd be at this time, and like you startled me. I do try to think of some key moments, and it'd typically be like mid to end of the pack, when I would start to get a little bit more, have more freedom to be more creative with shots and like mess around with like different camera angles or stuff in the woods, because I'm not just like trying to do a lead or follow of one of the main runners. I'd go down in the woods and I'd be shooting like up or down the slope, getting someone as they're tracking by you. And then you would just kind of like traipse out of the woods, and the runner would be like, oh, like, I did not see you there. And you'd be like, you'd be kind of like a moose coming out of the woods.
Yeah.
But it's someone with a video camera on like a gimbal, and then run with them for like 4 or 5 minutes and just chat. And I remember there's this at Kilkenny, this group of it was like 3 or 4 friends who were doing the whole race together, and I got a video of them from shooting down a slope onto the trail, and once I started moving, they kind of spotted me and they're like, "Oh, can we do that again? Like we want a better video." And then
I love it.
we shot some video, and I got some clips of them as we were running for a while, and that kind of gave them some more oomph to keep on
Yeah.
going to the next aid station. But yeah, there's just a lot of little moments like that where people are just really stoked that you're there, and like thanking you, and then also like wanting to give a peace sign to the camera, or like sometimes it'd be like, hey, I want to try something really cool, like do you want to be a part of it? And they'd be like, yeah. And just like be willing to take energy and time out of their race to like participate in this like piece of art that
Yeah.
is gonna kind of partially encapsulate this momentous thing that they just did. So it's a great feeling for me. It's like really rewarding to you know be able to do this for myself, but also to see people's joy that they're also out there. Um, Not sure
Yeah.
if you have any other stories, Ethan.
Yeah, I mean, everything you said I resonate with 100%. I think there's like you said, Patrick, like there's almost kind of this automatic like level of trust when it's something like that's out like on, I don't know, yeah, like on Chikora or something. And it's interesting to have seen maybe some other people who have done some work like what we do on trails, and maybe like there's somewhat of like a separation or like a I'm on the job kind of attitude that I've seen from various people in different like even just kind of across the country that I've seen. I think one of the things I'm really proud of, having worked with Cody for what like 11 projects now, is just like taking kind of an element of fun and playfulness into it. I know
Yeah.
like for myself, I like going into these, I I almost like that's like the shooting the race is my race, and I kind of take like this kind of like go get it like kind of like I hype myself up like I'm gonna go do an athletic event, you know.
Yeah, you gotta be a bit hyped for it.
Yeah. And then I'm thinking of like Kilkenny 23. That I was just on the summit and I was following people down the backside of Cabot where it immediately gets really like wooded and there's down trees and it's really steep, and I did that section several times and it became this like obstacle course where I was like, all right, can I keep up with them? And they're like, you can't keep up with me. I was like, yes, I can. It kind of like you kind of egg each other on a little bit.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that gets good shots out of it. And then yeah, I mean to what you
Also,
were
always
saying
an
earlier.
ego builder. It's kind of nice.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And then yeah, to what you were saying earlier, Patrick, I think I think the matter of fact is that if you're comfortable, once you get over the mental barrier of like the thing in your hands is really expensive. Like they're tools, not jewels, as Chris Picard says. But uh, once you get over that, shooting is like once you like know the technical specs of your camera, like it's not actually too hard. It's kind of a set it and forget it thing where it's like all right,
Okay.
like the set it, the exposure is all like where you want it to be. Maybe like you set your focus the way you want it to be, and then you like when I do it, I'm like watching the runner or watching the trail, and I'm not even like looking at the camera. I'm just like kind of trying to keep like a side thought on it and make sure I don't die.
Yeah.
And but then the reaction from a lot of people, which like Cody said is like a big ego builder, is everyone's like, oh, I don't know how you're doing that. And you're like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty cool, right? Like, "Ah."
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, it's fun.
I remember when you guys, well, Ethan, when you were like, oh, go to the, I guess it was Osceola, yeah, Jigger Johnson, when I had the camera. I was like so nervous. I was like gonna like, I was like both excited, but also I'm like gonna capture like 30 minutes of footage and it's all gonna be terrible. Like, I was just, so I just, when you had sent the draft and I was like, oh my God, my shot is in there. I was very excited because I was like, I probably didn't even turn the camera on for some, like I just thought I did something off, so it was fun. But I totally, yeah, I'm sure it just comes naturally. Although I will say it's funny. This is separate but related, but I feel like carrying the camera equipment that you guys do definitely legitimizes you more than like me carrying an iPhone. Like I like just in terms of like the interaction with participants where I feel like people are like, oh yeah, this person works for the race. When you're like have a fancy camera. When I have my iPhone, I'm like, I could just be anybody. They don't like. Sometimes I was talking about this with another photographer, but he's like, yes. Sometimes people are like, don't know whether you're with the race or not. You could just be like out hiking, filming with an like. I'm always like, just so you know, I am like filming for the race. But sometimes I always feel, I don't know, just like holding an iPhone versus holding a camera, like there's a mental difference for me at least. I don't know if you experience that, but
That's a funny take because I think
yeah.
what surprised me often is like you'll have a camera with a microphone and a gimbal and maybe even like a monitor on the gimbal,
Yeah.
and it's like this whole thing, and people will still be like,
Yeah,
and I'm like,
yeah.
"No, it's not a photo. It's not a
True.
photo."
Yeah.
So,
That's funny.
but yeah, there is definitely some aspect of that where it's like, yeah, I mean, it's like people know what you're there for when it's obvious, I guess. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to, yeah, touch a bit more on the White Mountain Endurance Cup because I feel like that, was a huge highlight of this past season, and something new for, yeah, just the New England community. There's certainly other mountain series that have been around for quite a while here in New England. The USATF Mountain Series, and but yeah, I feel like the White Mountain Endurance Cup had a just fun, different storyline, and I think the courses is a lot of what makes it special is just four really epic, cool courses. But I think, yeah, there was also just like a natural storyline having those four races kind of together, which from a just storytelling perspective, I think really was exciting, to go into the season knowing how they were all connected without knowing necessarily what would unfold. And yeah, curious like how, you guys from like race one, what you maybe were expecting to race four and how things turned out.
I know for me, seeing everyone perform race one, it was I was in my mind, I was like, oh, okay, this is gonna be probably pretty similar throughout the whole series. You have your top contenders for everything, but then even by race two, I was like, these courses like are they're also technically different
Yeah.
that we saw throughout the series, like everyone had their own moments where they shined because
Yeah.
of whatever their technical ability was. Like Haley for the women is such a powerful climber. Abby's so like just generally super fast. Like everyone has had a little bit of something that where they were able to excel at and like keep the race so close or keep the cup so close.
Yeah, it was super
I,
dynamic.
yeah, I think that kind of is what made it so exciting was the dynamic aspect of it. It was really fun to just see people kind of like duke it out while like harder to see like in the race finish that in the results sheets that's kind of happening. But like
Yeah.
I'm sure like you were on the course a lot, Patrick, and Ethan and I were on the course, like seeing people like battle it out, or like certain descents, like people would be hammering, be like, oh, I know like so and so's got ahead of me on the uphill, like I gotta go catch them, or trying to like gain some ground on the flats because that's what they're better. It was so cool. I really enjoyed that aspect of it, and I think that's from seeing other races, like the different courses together were just designed really well to make it less of a wash and more of a,
Yeah.
a great
No, it
grouping.
did bring a lot of drama out. I mean, yeah, even just the final race at Kilkenny, like it did come down to like just, a couple points separating
Hmm.
the leaders, and certainly uh wasn't set in stone going into that race. Like there was definitely a lot of changing dynamics in the leaderboards. And I think one thing that you guys did a really great job with, especially like as the season progressed, was the just the relationships that we're building between athletes, because they also like didn't go into the season, some of them like knew each other, but a lot of them like, they were sort of new faces to one another. And seeing those sort of friendships, like it was, both competition, but really like friendships evolve. And yeah, I just loved the different clips you got of people sort of talking about one another, and oh, like here's what to expect going into this race, here's what I'm a little intimidated by, like, and also like lifting each other up. I think that yeah, was really special, and something that I'm glad like kind of shined through with yeah, the films that you produced.
Yeah, I loved being able to see that, and we would chat with people during after the races, like in a unprofessional manner, like just chit chatting, and being able to see them as people and like, interact was really fun. But then also in the interviews for the series, really awesome to see people like grow more comfortable as those interviews progressed. Um, and yeah, seeing people like reference each other more and more as like it became more of a community feel, and less like it didn't feel so solo, like individual silos of racers by the end of it. It's like these people are working towards something together. Like everyone, you're racing each other, but it doesn't feel like it's a cutthroat thing.
Yeah.
They're all just out there like trying to do the best they can with what they're given.
Yeah. I can attest to that too. Just I'm often the one kind of running interviews, and that's something I've always loved about the filmmaking process. Is like how can I more like genuinely kind of connect with someone and bring out more of their like actual thoughts versus what they think they're
Yeah.
supposed to say to a camera. And yeah, just like uh, I mean, just the some of the stuff I got with Peter at the end, and uh, with Haley and at Baldface, just there are so many great things that came out, like Cody said, as people got more comfortable, I think. And not to like reiterate too much, but like I think really it was just really fun to highlight the women's race this season in that, like, yes, Peter and Max were at all these and they crushed it, but they were the most consistent on the men's side. But the women like really showed up to all of them,
Yeah.
and they put down really impressive times, like deep into the field. And the fact that they were themselves like aware of that, and I think maybe felt like they were maybe almost pioneering that in a way. Like not the first ever, of course, but I mean, I think that the White Mountain Endurance Cup was kind of unique in its format, and
Yeah.
and it's the depth of its field on the community level versus the like people coming out because it's part of USATF or something, and then they are never in the Northeast again until next year.
Yeah.
It's very homegrown and mutually supportive and self-aware of exactly like what they were up to, and who they were up against, and proud of that, even if they weren't like the winner of that race or something. So
Yeah. Yeah, no, I definitely think I'm actually pulling up to see we had 5 women finishers for you know, the the cup last year. And we already have, yeah, more than that signed up for 2025. And that's just people who've already signed up for all 4 races, which is really cool. So they're already like, it's February, they're already planning the whole season, and I'm sure there'll be a lot more. But yeah, I just think the narrative of, yeah, the whole cup is great. Awesome. Yeah, no, I think you guys were like just such great storytellers for that. Really like brought a lot more eyes to it. And yeah, introduced like, yeah, I just loved like highlighting some of the really strong athletes that we have here in New England who often don't get a lot of attention, but um are some of the best. Um I thought that was really neat. Yeah, usually that just happens less around here. So I loved how we sort of balanced covering the front of the race with also covering, the rest of the race. I think the films that were made did a good job of that. And like the finish line atmosphere, and just like, yeah, just how it was such a collaborative effort, like the races. So well, um, maybe as we, yeah, are in 2025 now, I feel like there's a little bit to talk about. You guys recently announced the birth of Cloudsplitter Creative. I know very little other than the name, but I'd love to hear, where that came from and where it's headed.
Yeah,
Ethan, do you want to go?
sure. Yeah. So, yeah, I guess Cody and I were pals for a while, and then we did all these races, and we said this is really cool. Really like doing this, um, and we were out to shoot the Coldwater Rumble 100 back in January, and that was the first thing after the first season that we covered in New England, and we're like, oh my gosh, we got flown out to film
Yeah.
a race with pro ultra runners. Like, this is pretty incredible, I remember we were in the rental car. I was like, hey man, what if we what would you be down to like make this like a real thing that we kind of pursued? and and because I feel like we have been kind of towing this line between like we're not hobbyists, like we're doing like real work with
Yeah.
like, real people, but it's we also both have full times, and it's kind of on the side in our free time, and knowing just both of our artistic backgrounds, I think we're interested in seeing what can happen if we kind of pursue taking things kind of up to that next professional level. And so, I mean, right now it's still just kind of a concept. But it's just like, hey, we kind of brainstormed a name for the brand.
Yeah,
And
where did that stem from?
yeah, Cody, you can go ahead and talk about that.
We were really trying to make sure touch on our roots, both locationally and also like feeling. With me having like a stronger background in photography, and Ethan as a documentarian, like we wanted to capture the feeling of like always moving forward, while still being grounded in like what we felt in the Northeast. And so Cloudsplitter is the name of one of the mountains here in the Adirondacks, or is the indigenous name for Mount Marcy, which is like the tallest
Okay.
peak in New York. And so just the Adirondacks is kind of where we met. Also holds a special place in my heart for trail running. Beautiful place. I wish there could be more races here, but just with the DC regulations, not so much. But anyways, besides the point. That's kind of where the Cloudsplitter Creative got its name. And as we kind of develop it more, and slowly like build on more work, the goal is to eventually move into full-time business for this, and just do like a slower ramp up to getting more work before we both leave our full-time
Yeah.
positions. Because we both like what we do, but once you start stacking on, we did what six races for White Mountain in 2024, and that's 6 weekends in a summer, and then we both do other freelance work on the side, and you're like, well, what did I do the last 5 months that wasn't working? So
Yeah.
so we want to kind of move more into that full-time freelance space, but also still hold the roots of our work feeling a little bit more grounded and less. There's a big trend in media to capture like our 3-second attention spans that often come from like social videos.
Yeah.
And so we wanna still have that grounded sense in all of our work, even if it's like a short ad for a brand, of it,
Yeah, a bit more
feeling
cathartic
natural.
and
Yeah.
less adrenaline, or
Yeah. Even if it
Yeah.
still has that adrenaline, just having it feel rooted in an emotion and a feeling.
Yeah.
and pushing us forward. So we're very excited to kind of play around with that moving forward. So if there's any, whether it's running, biking, cycling, anything, we're just looking to enjoy the outdoor spaces and bring stories onto the screen.
Yeah, I
And
think
yeah, with that in mind, where would like people, best connect with you, like both personally and then also with Cloudsplitter Creative? Yeah, whether that's Instagram or other. Yeah, where should people connect with you if they want to follow more of your work?
yeah, it's very new. We are currently kind of looking for work for 2026 and working on kind of brand and portfolio stuff this year. But we do have an Instagram page that's started. It's going to start getting more fleshed out this year, which is just Cloudsplitter Co. On Instagram, and then a website being cloudsplittercreative.com. And then either of our individual Instagrams are probably currently just actually more active, just as we're kind
Yeah.
of still operating more as kind of like independent kind of co-creators. As we'll start kind of funneling more work into that under that business entity versus kind of like Ethan JS Photography and Cody Updike, So, but
Yeah,
my Instagram is Ethan JS Photography and Cody's is Cody Updike.
Just
So
Cody Updike, my name.
yeah. Simple. Yeah, and they're certainly frequently linked on the White Mountain Endurance Instagram, so it would be hard to miss them. Awesome. Yeah, as just like with 2025, any more short term, projects or things you're excited about coming up, either professionally or races? I know, Ethan, you dabble in some of your own races and adventures. But yeah, what's on the more short term horizon for you both?
I think
I know.
go ahead.
I know for myself, I just recently started trying to train a little bit better again to get back into maybe a little harder mountain shape. So I got some. I don't have any races planned for the summer, but I have some like bigger pursuits I'm trying to aim for in the Adirondacks, which I'm pretty
Cool.
excited for. So I'm gonna try to do some big mountain link ups, and then have a couple fun little professional projects in the works through both my full-time job shooting photos, but also freelance some freelance stuff. A couple through Cloudsplitter where we're making happen right now, and hopefully we can
Nice.
keep going.
Yeah. Yeah, for myself, don't know specifically what yet. I'm still kind of like seeing where things fall on the calendar. I know for myself, if we don't know like whether or not we'll be needed this year in like for White Mountain Endurance, and if not, I would really like to do one or two of those races. I think probably either Baldface or Chikura would be the most up my alley personally. Um, but otherwise, I'm kind of interested in trying out some gravel bike racing. I think that would be really cool.
Ooh, fun.
Yeah. So it kind of depends
Should go
on
to
if
Overland this year.
that's what I'm thinking. If it's not sold out already, but
Yeah.
so there's that, and then yeah, I think for myself and for the brand right now, like we're still kind of just developing an identity. So again, like work wise, looking more towards next year. But I would
Yeah.
love to see if there's anything that could happen to get out to some races out west and like some of these really big events. I got to go help with the live stream of Western States last year, and that was just like such a like eye-opening thing to like what trail racing really kind of is like on the national scale, and it's pretty amazing. So yeah, would love to be out at like something like Tushers or Hard Rock or something, and these big like grandiose Rockies kind of settings, and just continue to take the creative aspect with us as we just enjoy being in the mountains and being athletes as well.
Yeah. I love it. Well, yeah, sounds like some exciting stuff ahead. Yeah, hopefully we'll be crossing paths a few times this year on the trail. whether at White Mountain Endurance events or feel like I'm bound to bump into you somewhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, this has been a great chat, super fun. I feel like, yeah, you've just brought so much to White Mountain Endurance and really, highlighted it on in a big way. So thank you both for that. And yeah, we'll have to get you back on the podcast and down the road and catch up on future adventures.
That's great. Yeah. Thank you so much for letting us be a part of White Mountain Endurance, and love seeing it as it's grown. And it was a huge pleasure and privilege to be able to film and work with all the runners and athletes.
Yeah, I second that 100%. It's just like what a fulfilling and exciting thing to be a part of is at this time of like trail and ultra, just really kind of having a golden age, it feels like, and
Yeah.
being able to be a part of that on that kind of more smaller community scale here in the Northeast. So
awesome. Well, for anyone still listening, sign up for the White Mountain Endurance Cup. Kicks
Yes.
off June 7th. Chikura is quickly selling out, so grab a spot while you still can. And if you're looking to commit to the whole cup, you can also sign up for a series pass and save a few bucks in the process. But a good way to lock in for the season because, yeah, a lot of these events will sell out. But in the meantime, we have White Lakes in May, so looking forward to seeing people there. And if you're not running, you can also come volunteer. But
You want to talk about a fun race? The White Lakes was a good time.
Yeah, it's the place to be for sure. It's great vibes. We're eager for the season to kick off. Right now though, we're dealing with winter and it's beautiful in its own way, so we'll take it. But yeah, well, thank you both, and thanks everyone for tuning in to another episode of the White Mountain Endurance Podcast.